So yeah, I'm here to talk about our little project, Lord of the Rings, and in particular Film 3. This is, I think, the first public presentation that's been given about the work that we did at WETA Digital on Film 3. And in deciding how I was going to tackle the work that WETA did, the 1,500 shots plus that we did for the third film, I really had a choice in terms of fitting that into a 45-minute presentation. I could pick one or two things and concentrate on them in detail at the expense of everything else we did, or I could just kind of do a very high-level overview and try and hit most of the things, the different tasks that we had in doing the visual effects for the movie. And for better or worse, I chose the latter, mainly because I couldn't really think of one or two things to focus on. That was too difficult a decision to make. So I'm not really going to have the opportunity today to really get under the skin with anything to too great a level of detail, unfortunately. But what we will do is just tear through a huge range of different tasks and different aspects of the effects work that we did. So yeah, hopefully that's kind of what you guys would like to see. We could roll tape now, and I'll just be pausing this as we go, but essentially I'm just going to be talking over this tape for the whole duration of my presentation. And it's low-res stuff, and it's works in progress, and there's no colour grading, and it's, you know, there's lots of different aspects of it that you're just going to have to take with a grain of salt. So yeah, just keep doing it. And there's some mistakes. I think, you know, we all learn from mistakes, so I'm showing some things that went wrong as well. But I'm going to start with a look at some of our creature work. One of the big tasks that we have to do on each of these three films, and I'm just going to start with what you are probably all here to see amongst other things, which is Gollum, our work on Gollum. One of the big challenges that we had to do on both films 2 and 3. I'm just going to roll this scene 422, and you can see that we did exactly the same thing in film 3 that we did in film 2, which is actually have Andy Serkis create this reference performance for us. This is Andy on stage in a rough edit of this scene, and I think really, you know, it's true to say that the performance of Gollum is a collaboration between the animators and Andy Serkis, and the animators had this fantastic central performance to refer to. We're now going to see the same cut repeated, but with the animation. So this is the animation puppet as the animators see it when they're working on the screen. You know, doing the I guess with Gollum it's about half and half keyframe and mocap for the body. That's pretty much the way it worked out on film 2 and on film 3. The face is entirely keyframe animated. There's no facial motion capture at all with Gollum in the film, or with any character in the film. Just, you know, you can see how the animators are taking that performance from Andy Serkis and building on it and adding nuance. So yeah, I can really see that as a collaboration. And this is the final. It's actually very dark for some reason. This clip. It's got this green line. We could probably just wrap the whole thing up a little bit and get rid of that as well. But yeah, hopefully this is very dark. Hopefully this gives you an idea of the way that we take Andy and turn him into Gollum for the film. So we had this gap between film 2 and film 3, which is a fantastic opportunity to revisit Gollum and to fix all the things that we found out were wrong with him in film 2. And Shelley just said that it was a challenge to follow up film 2 and make some of this better, but we saw it as an opportunity in many ways to come back and revisit Gollum again and make him a little bit better. And the fixes that we did are kind of subtle, and you may not see them as being obvious. There's things like just facial animation tweaks, revisiting the way the mouth is structured so that we're getting more control, doing things where we had issues in film 2 between the way that the lips and the teeth were intersecting and doing funny things at this point, so we fixed that up. We fixed up the way the eyelids roll over the corneal bulge. We did some work on the thighs. Just you know, subtle changes. We did things like we just moved the location of his hip. His hip had been designed to be quite high. And then we've got all this subsurface light scattering, which we polished again. It's the stuff that Chris mentioned. You can see here the effect of changing the subsurface depth and changing the subsurface colour. So yeah, all that stuff is has been just nuanced a little bit more for Gollum for film 3. We really feel like Gollum is better in film 3. I meant to ask actually, have most of you seen film 3? Because I'm just going to spoil the ending for you if you haven't had a chance to do that. So looking at one particular shot from that scene, where we've got Andy doing on the motion capture stage, creating the motion capture performance for the body motion. Then looking at the facial animation. I love this shot for the subtlety and the nuances in the facial animation. There's things going on here where his lips are sticking together. We added that as a procedural. The animators didn't have to worry about that. That just happened automatically. We've got his eye moving around underneath the eyelid, the corneal bulb moving there. And the fact that there's a lot of ambient motion, he's never really completely still. So yeah, I think we did have the opportunity to take him on to a new level in film 3. And I think if you look at Gollum in film 2 and Gollum in film 3 side by side, there's definitely, we feel that there's definite improvements there. So that was a great opportunity to have to bring him up to speed. This lovely shot where he leads Frodo into Shelob's lair. We did a lot of work on the hair for film 3, so that the way it behaves where it comes off the roll of the skull, whereas in film 2 it really stuck to his skull. And the other big thing that we did with Gollum in film 3 is that he changed a lot through the length of film 3. He got more dirty, as you can see here, and he got more beaten up and more emaciated, more kind of anorexic. And he gets thrown down a mountain, so he gets scarred and bruised. You can see here some of the tests for the bruising texture maps that we did. It's a little bit alarming seeing Gollum without his eyes, I'm sorry about that, but this is just looking at him getting more scratched and beaten up. Oh, can you pause it here actually? Just see if we can we go back to that grayscale and just pause on that? Just talk briefly about how we made him more emaciated. We were able to do that entirely through the displacement map work that we did, where we didn't really have to do much work on the underlying subdivision surface. We didn't have to re-rig Gollum in terms of his muscle model, but we were able to make him look more gaunt and skinny, just entirely through reworking the displacement map. So we can roll again now, thank you. So when we see him in this sequence here towards the end of the film, where he fights the Sam on the slopes of Mount Doom, he's really well gone, in his behaviour as well as his work. And the other thing we did in this scene, which was a first for us, was we actually did the motion capture at the same time as we filmed the hero characters, Frodo and Sam. So you can see here that we've converted the film set to a motion capture stage as well. And we did that in these scenes where Gollum is fighting and there's a lot of interaction with Frodo or Sam. It's got a much tighter integration between the digital character and the on-set character. Of course, with these shots, you've got to do a lot of paint work to paint Andy Serkis out of the frame, which is very painstaking work. But yeah, we had a great paint team to do all this stuff. So yeah, on-set motion capture, it's a lot of work because you've got to keep out of the way of the film crew, but it was very successful in those few scenes. So yeah, I'm just going to roll right along now. I told you this was going to be fast and loose. Another new character a new character that we did for film 3. One of the main new characters we did, which was the spider Shelob. And Shelob was hard actually. Shelob was difficult in that it took us a long time to achieve the design that Peter Jackson, the director, was really happy with. I mean, Peter's really scared of spiders, but we couldn't just do a straight giant spider. We had to tweak the design to make it both recognisable as a spider, but more monstrous as well. And particularly in the area of the face, we really, that's the displacement surface there for the face. We deviated a lot from a spider where the eyes are on top of the head. And from Sam's point of view, in the fight sequence, we would never have been able to see the eyes if we'd put the eyes where a spider naturally has its eyes. But yeah, we got there in the end, and once the design had been locked, all the pre-production work had happened. The Shelob shots just flowed really quickly, and I think in a few weeks, like in 6 or 7 weeks, they were all done, and that was good. We could get on to other things. But the role of just great keyframe character animation in in creating something incredibly spooky, like a giant spider. I had to put this shot in because when you see this shot in an audience with a general, in a cinema with a general audience, this shot, you know, has people really squirming in their seats. And it's just all about that, putting all that malice and evil into the animation. And this shot I like because, you know, to get the integration between the spider and Frodo, we couldn't go with a blue screen element for Frodo, we had to go with a digital double. Great animation, both on Shelob herself and on the Frodo digital double here, to really get all that fantastic play between the two, and the fact that she's almost graceful in this process of wrapping him up. Just a shot here of how we achieved the web, where we're using cloth, Cyflex cloth again, so the same technique as Chris used, and just you know, doing a really good, nice web shader for that cloth element. I'll switch back to the final here again. It's about as close as we like to get to a digital double, really. And of course, the same thing. The other thing that's going on in these shots is that the actors are having to act to thin air a lot of the time. I just thought I'd drop this plate in to give you an idea of that. And the shot where Sam stabs Shelob, again, is a combination of great animation and looking at different ways of achieving the goop and spittle. Yeah, where we've got a combination of 3D and 2D elements being done for that. And this shot here, to get the integration between the spider and Sam, we actually went with a digital double for Sam in this shot. That's a digital Sam being pushed up the cliff. But for the next shot, we were way too close to Sam to use the digital double here. So to get the integration between Sam and the jaws, we used this. Spider guy. And what I like about this is it's really Sean Astin who's animating the spider jaws for this shot. He's kind of moonlighting as an animator. And that worked really well. Okay, so it's a quick look at Shelob. There's this other creature which is new for film 3, which is we just know it as the Great Beast, and it only shows up in 3 or 4 shots. We were actually in a design review for Shelob, another design review for Shelob's face, and at the end of it, Alan Lee, the conceptual designer, said to Peter, can we just pause it here, please? Or maybe back a little bit, thanks. Just said to Peter, oh, you know, there's this line in the book about the battering ram being pulled up to the gates of Minas Tirith that goes something like, and great beasts pulled it. And he said, oh, no, I didn't remember that line actually. And Alan said, well, I worked up this sketch of what these things could look like. And there was this fantastic pencil sketch of this cross between a dinosaur and a rhinoceros pulling the Grand, the battering ram, up to the gates, and naturally Peter said, yeah, that's really cool. That looks great. Let's have some of those. So we're like, oh my god, we're a few months to go and we've got to do a whole new hero creature. But we got it through. We did it through our traditional creature modelling pipeline, which is to actually have the design team in the WETA workshop sculpt a physical maquette. We cast that and sent it off to the company that's doing all our scanning now, which is a company called XYZ RGB. I don't know if you were here for George Borshikov's presentation on Matrix, but they used the same company to scan the cast they took of the actors' faces for the Burley Brawl sequence. Yeah, a lot of effects houses are now using this company because they've got this unique scanner that can capture a huge amount of geometric detail, down to tens of microns. You know, they end up throwing away a lot of the data that they give us because it's too much. I think we got this back and it was like half the creature, and it was around 5 or 6 million triangles. So we built a subdivision surface model underneath that and then extract the difference between the two as a displacement map, which is what you're seeing here. You're seeing our hero subdivision surface model rendered with that, displacement map, which works fine. Can you roll tape again for me, please? Thanks. And yeah, we got these guys into like 3 or 4 shots. And I think the nice thing about that is that, this is the creature rig, is that by seeing something as, that's as complex as this in such an offhand way, I think it adds to the realism of Middle Earth, the experience of reality of Middle Earth, that it's not like every creature has to be featured in its own scene. They can just be offhand in this way. So I do like that aspect of it. And then our old friends from film 1 and film 2, the trolls, reappeared in a big way. This is kind of their day in the sun, really, these guys. We had the cave troll in film 1, who was kind of dopey and a little bit pathetic. We had the mountain trolls on the gates of Minas Tirith, opening the Black Gates, pushing open the Black Gates in film 2, which was like a cameo again. But in film 3 we have these 5 different flavours of troll, and we rebuilt them pretty much from scratch. We made their faces more aggressive. They're about 50% bigger, well, they do vary in size, and yeah, like with all the creatures and digital doubles for film 3, we rebuilt our film 1 and film 2 NURBS models as subdivision surface models. We really switched to sub-Ds for film 3 in a big way after the success of Gollum being sub-D for film 2. And while we were waiting for these shots, the sequences to be turned over, to get the animators and puppets, and they were just able to go off and have some fun and create kind of what they think is typical troll action. We call these vignettes. And they kind of bag these things, and then we can draw on them and use them in shots as they come in-house. This last one we used for the shot where the trolls do break down the gates of Minas Tirith. This is the plate here, and then that animation kind of being reused. And if you could just pause it on the shot, I will mention this this aspect, which is that those are all digital double soldiers in the foreground of that shot. Can we just go back and play those last couple of clips again? And in film 1, we would have done those guys as blue screen, hero blue screen elements, which we then switched to digital doubles on the point of impact. That's the way we did the goblins who get knocked around in Balin's tomb. But our technology had advanced to the level where in film 3 they can just be digital throughout the shot. And it's the quality of the animation as well, the way these guys are running around and picking themselves up. Had advanced to the point where they can just be digital doubles throughout that shot, which gives you many more options in terms of staging more dramatic actions. You're not constrained to what the blue screen elements are doing. Thanks, we can just roll that on again. That's a real quick look at the trolls. We'll come back to them a little bit later as well with the Minas Tirith stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the environmental work we do. You know, all these wide shots of the environments, which I think really create for the audience the perception of Middle-earth. It's really through these establishing shots that we get a sense of this. This is the title shot from film 3, which was an incredibly difficult shot to pull off, and went through, I think on our shot subsystem, I think they got it to the high 400s, the number of times that this shot had been submitted for review. Just looking at the miniature element here, which is one of the components that went into that shot. And we have this kind of bag of tricks that we use for environments that ranges from digital matte paintings through to tile sets that we reproject onto big sites and then re-render through Maya with a camera move that's, there's the Miriam Pippin digital doubles on the wall, which you'll never see at this resolution in the final shot. I'm sorry, you only barely see them in the film version. Massive heads, the red splotches there are going to be the tree characters, and then the green screen of the heroes arriving. So yeah, we've got these tricks that range from digital matte paintings. Our matte paintings are cloned from photographs rather than being painted from scratch. So the background you see here of the mountains beyond the miniature of Isengard has been created from photographs from locations in New Zealand and then projected onto a big digital cyclorama and re-rendered through the 3D camera. I think this now is actually the final version of the shot. So this is quite a good shot for just kind of exploring some of those different techniques that we use. You can almost see Miriam there. This shot I like. This is obviously Aragorn and Theoden looking at the Rohan army massing before they head off to Minas Tirith. And I like this one because the foreground element was actually shot in the car park at the Stone Street Studios where Peter shoots the films. And you know, we had this great tile set from from the Southern Alps in New Zealand. So it is actually a real environment. It's not that it's been cloned from anything. It's just been dropped in where the blue screen is, stitched together. And then we'll create very lightweight geometry, which is kind of matches this, and that's where we'll stage the massive army. That's the massive army you can see being kind of wiped onto the site there. And then, yeah, just pop blue screen on over the top. Okay. It's not quite as simple as that. I just wanted to show this shot really to ask you to look at the houses on the left-hand side of the frame there, on the hillside up here, because that was like the other thing that we do for environments, which is like a full 3D build where we have to. They actually made all this stuff on location in the South Island, but we got the task of fleshing it all out and completing the wall. And we needed a context for doing that in 3D, so we had this what we call terrain, which is a digital model of the location based on aerial photogrammetry, actually. They did a flyby for us, one of the local map making companies. And then just to finish off our look at this shot, I just put the massive simulation in there, which is our crowd simulation software, and I'll come back and talk a little bit more about massive later on in this presentation. Rolling right along. Oh yeah, kind of again, sort of staying in the environment front of mind, the work we did in Mordor, which consisted mainly of destroying the place. Shots where the Barad-dûr, the tower, collapses. This is an entirely digital model through this destruction sequence, and probably one of the largest models we built, about 750,000 quads. And we had special code that was written for us that shattered the building, and then special code that did the simulation. So those building shots were in production for a year, those 4 or 5 shots. The stuff with the crack coming all the way through to the black gates, used a combination of the black gates miniature. We've got some foreground orcs shot against our big green screen, which is always nice to have. And then massive crowd to add volume to them. And then the crack itself, which we did through a combination of techniques. We used the same code that we had used to break the building up, to break the ground, and then we did some shader tricks. So yeah, we've just cracked the ground and extruded it down, and we're just doing a dynamic solve on those chunks. But then we're doing some shader tricks on the walls to make them look a little bit more rocky. That's all just done in a procedural shader. Shattering the tower was done through a dynamics simulation, and we added CG dust through a straight Maya particle. So we've actually got the trolls from film 2, from the gates in this shot, but nobody can see them, so I had to put this in just so that they had their moment of glory. I don't think you really get to see them in the shot, but there's some lovely animation of those guys falling off. And they are actually in the shot, it's just that your eye is led elsewhere by all the other chaos that's happening. I just want to show this shot quickly because this is largely done in 2D. There's some 3D work for this rock element here blowing up, but it's done through a lot of warping and compositing of flame elements. So that was pretty straightforward. And I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on this shot here. It's actually one of the 2 or 3 shots where we did a full fluid simulation for lava. We had this miniature pass with motion moved miniature chunks. We had digital doubles for Frodo and Sam. We used a piece of commercial software called RealFlow to do the lava. And this is like, just running a whole different batch of simulations on that setting with different parameters to just start to try and narrow down on a set of parameters that would give you the look that was wanted for the simulation. And it just went through iteration after iteration. You pick the one you like and you tweak the parameters a little bit more. Obviously we've got 3D geometry that's been tracked in to match the miniature plinth chunks, as you see here, which are interacting with the simulation as well. And just keeping on running this until we get a simulation that looks pretty cool. These take a long time to run. But then once the simulation is done, then it's a case of starting to look into how we can actually render this and composite it to make it look like real lava. Because in its raw state, it looks really artificial in CG. And that was done partly through the lighter passing through different elements to the compositor, like depth pass, which is a very handy thing to have, and then different various glow passes, where we've got the glow of the lava reflected onto the walls of the set. This is all a digital copy of the miniature set. So these are all elements that the compositor can use to help add to the realism of this. We've got little dust hits on the chunks, and then smoke and embers all whooshing around. So once the compositor had all these elements, it was just a case of rerunning the comp, doing things like just running filters to crank up the edges of the lava. I think that when that came along, I really started to think that the shot was going to work. And once everything's together, just finishing off, that was the final look, that shot there. I wanted to have a quick look at the Army of the Dead. They're a lot of fun, but I'm going to really just look at one shot with these guys. It's this shot of the King of the Dead. The Army of the Dead was mainly done through 2D tricks, but this guy had a 3D stage 2 head tracked inside his head. This is the green screen element. You can see we had a few other guys that we had to roto out this plate in the end. But then we track in a head, the tracking guys match move in a head and add some deformation. And then we've got this digital build, which was based on a scan of the actor, which we then whittled right down to a skull and then added all this kind of stretched flesh over the top. And that's a render of the stage 2 head. And then in the comp, it's just up to the animator to blend through that stage 2 head, particularly when the king got angry. That was kind of when people like to see flashes of the stage 2 head. Which leads us on to the city of Minas Tirith, which is the Gondorian stronghold. And I'm not sure if people are aware, but most of the time we see this in the film, it's this 1/72nd scale miniature that is on screen. It's a fantastic miniature that WETA Workshop built and the miniature unit filmed. And there are other, there are live action sets. Can we just pause it here actually, just while I catch up on this stuff? Thanks. There were live action sets for particular parts of the city, like where that shot I showed you of the trolls bashing in through the gate. That's a live action set, obviously. And there are other larger scale miniatures as well, but it's this 1/72nd scale mini, which is about 3 meters tall, 3 to 3.5 meters tall. That when you see Minas Tirith on screen, it's more than likely that. We had this issue of obviously staging digital crowds and characters onto that miniature, where we needed reference geometry, which is what you see in green here. And we talked about doing a really detailed survey of the miniature so that we had a context for all our 3D animation. But they were filming on this miniature for years, literally for years, for 2 or 3 years. And halfway through that process, they cut it up into bits and moved it to a different soundstage 2 miles down the road. Every so often they'd pull the buildings off and use them for Osgiliath for a miniature shoot at another city, and then they'd put them all back on in different places. And it soon became apparent that any survey that we did of the miniature was going to start becoming incorrect the moment we stopped surveying it. And so we used photogrammetry, and with shots like this, there's enough parallax in the path of the camera for us to be able to derive geometry like this directly from the plate. And that works so well because you're immediately working in the context of the way the shot's going to be judged by the audience, which is visually within the context of that one shot. And it may be the case that if you move the camera to a different view, then you'll start to see inconsistencies with the data, but we're just not concerned about that. It kind of works in the context of the shot that it's derived for. So that was the way that we derived all our reference terrain for these sorts of shots. Thanks, you can roll on again now, please. The animation on the horse applied to our Gandalf digital double Shadowfax digital double. This is another great shot for the city, which is the one where the fell beasts arrive, really the start of the battle proper, in the middle of film 3. And lots and lots of different elements going on here. We've got the crowd on the top of the plinth, animated trebuchet firing rocks. This is just one of the miniature passes on the city. The thing about the the miniature is that they shot it over and over and over again. They give us a beauty pass and a key light pass and a smoke pass, and 5 to 10 passes typically for any shot on the city, which the compositor then uses to really nuance the lighting. We've got this matte painting which we're projecting onto a cyclorama and re-rendering through the shot camera. So we're starting to pull the environment together. Yeah, this is obviously a work in progress on the environment. And then we've got, there's sound on this actually. Yeah, the animator that she showed this, Mary Victoria, she said it to Wagner, which I thought was such a nice touch. I should repeat that here. So you can start to see the trebuchet animation coming through, and then the fully rigged fell beast. And I put this in just so you can see the fluttering on the wing through here. Just a really nice, subtle secondary motion that helps to add realism to these characters. The massive simulation, which takes place in a virtual copy of the environment. We had low resolution geometry for pretty much the whole environment that we cover in film 3, which was great for those shots where we're seeing a long distance, like say from Osgiliath back to Minas Tirith, and we're able to really verify that if you put a camera in this place with this sort of lens, then Minas Tirith would be this big. So we had geometry for the whole of this Pelennor Fields, and all the way through Mordor to Mount Doom and Barad-dûr, including the Black Gates. In our unit, we have the 1 unit centimetres, which everything we build is modelled in, and that was all fine. I put this shot in because it shows those Gondorian soldier digital doubles again that we saw with the trolls. And we put the guy here into this plate just as a test, where we were building him to test that he was holding up against the real guys that you can see in that blue screen shot there. It's a classic Peter Jackson shot. And then I just put in this wonderful shot of the fell beast tearing through the streets of Minas Tirith, and we'll just look at the breakdown of all the elements. We've got this miniature shot with a snorkel cam, we've got the massive simulation, we've got the digital environment, the fell beast itself with dynamics and displacement. We've got Gondorian digital doubles, and we put the whole thing together. It's a lot of great compositing. And again, Minas Tirith, this crane up, Denethor seeing the army approach, which was shot on the plinth set. And this plinth was built with foreshortening to trick its length. So they knew that they were going to be basically seeing it from these sorts of angles. So they were able to build it about half length to get away with that. I just put in this shot of the trebuchet loads taking out one of these siege towers, so that you can see, this is pre-visualization here. This is what the shot was designed to. And a lot of these scenes were pre-visualized to this sort of level. And then we've got the miniature pass of the city that's been shot based on that pre-visualization. And that miniature is really the only thing that's real in the shot. Everything else. I'm going to finish up this look at Minas Tirith with this shot of the catapults firing on the city, which is a combination of lots of different techniques, environmental, a massive crowd. We built these catapults, and they were rigged by the rigging guys, so they were fully working models. So can we pause on this? I just wanted to talk a little bit about this as well. This is the helmet that the catapult troll, the troll that loads the boulders into the catapult wears. And I just wanted to show you a new trick that we developed for film 3, which is in terms of adding this geometric detail. This is our subdivision surface model here on the left.
And we're using this piece of software that's only been out for a year or two called ZBrush. I don't know if anybody has heard of ZBrush. It's kind of almost commodity level software. It's almost like pitched at the home market rather than the high-end commercial market. But it's got this great engine for manipulating very dense polygonal data sets and kind of like super artisan for polys, if anybody knows Maya. We were able to brush detail into copies of these models. You kind of take your subdivision surface model, you subdivide it several times to get geometric weight, and then you can push those polygons around like water. And we brush in all this extra detail as geometry, and then encapsulate this as a displacement map by just comparing the high res and the low res model and writing the difference into a displacement map. And obviously we're still using physical sculpted maquettes for our creatures and scanning them and getting displacement maps from that process. But we have this new trick now which enables us to kind of do the same level of detail on the computer without having to resort to physically scanning maquettes. So it's much faster, and all the props and secondary creatures, we would, and digital doubles, we were doing this to the faces on our digital doubles. We were doing these ZBrush passes to get good displacement maps for them. I just want to report on that there. Can you roll on now, thanks? How are you doing? Still got a wee way to go. So this is the massive simulation, and yeah, some nice motion capture based motion on the trolls. Massive uses libraries of motion capture data. I thought I'd show you this as what happens when the skeleton that you've put through the centre of your siege tower to give it sway starts Euler flipping. To fix this up. And this is just one of the motion editors taking the raw motion capture for the guys who are the massive agents who are loading the catapult, and kind of just having some fun one night with different ways of putting this motion together. I don't think we ever actually see this in the film. I hope we don't. It's very nice. Yeah. So that wraps up my ministerial piece. Rolling right along. So horses. Horses are the kind of the big hidden digital creature in film 3. There's a lot of horse carnage, a lot of horses get really badly hurt, and they're all digital. But we had to really get a great horse model. It's like, with a troll, people don't really know what a troll is supposed to look like. So you can kind of, you've got some leeway with how you create a troll. But with a horse, we all know what horses look like. What's more, we were going to have digital horses alongside real horses in shots like this. And so the audience was going to have a very immediate context for judging whether or not we got the horses and the cloth soles on the backs of the riders, all that sort of thing, correct. So one of the things we did was, for the first time, we actually did motion capture on something other than a human. We marked up a horse, and we rigged up one of the studio stages at Stone Street with more motion capture cameras. And we did horse motion capture. We had the horses walking and galloping up and down the length of the space, and used that. And that last shot, we just saw the Felbies taking out the horses. I think some of the horses are motion capture and some of them are keyframe. Up to the point of impact, and then they're all keyframe, obviously. And this is our digital horse model with the hair, with the mane and tail in its pre-dynamics phase. It's a really nice subdivision surface model created by one of the models team, which just works so well throughout these sequences. And as well as hero horses like that last one, we had massive horses for shots like this, where this is the plate that was shot on the central South Island of New Zealand. Of course, with a shot like this, there's a hell of a lot of roto that needs to go on. So I put this roto pass in just so that we can all feel the pain of the roto artists on this shot, doing manes and tails and flags and things. This shot where the Rohan riders are charging towards the orcs and they're getting taken out by orc arrows. It's one of those very demanding shots where we were lingering on digital horses for quite a long time before they get taken out. This is the plate. Notice that tail that's kind of just flapping through frame there. And then
this is the animation, all hero keyframe animation on these guys. And then putting them through the rig, cloth soles, mixture of Cyflex and Maya cloth, sort of some of each. And then the final shot again, where hopefully you're not aware that the guys who are going to fall down are digital until they fall, or even then. This shot of the rider's actually taking out the orcs, where look at this guy coming in frame left here. Be pleased to know that he didn't actually get hurt. That rider was alright, but obviously all the orcs are digital. They were done through massive. This is the massive animation pass, but then for these foreground ones, we actually came in and Jason Schleifer got in there and animated those foreground guys, just so that we got some really nice impact, which was greatly abated by the sound effects. So yeah, I've kind of talked about massive on some of these shots. I'll just look at some shots that particularly feature massive. Massive is our crowd simulation software. It enables us to do shots like this. This is an incredibly huge shot. In fact, I think there's something in the order of 100,000 orcs and 14,000 riders in this shot. And the statistics on the shot, the render time for the massive pass alone was 35,000 hours. The only way we could get this shot through, can you just want to pause it here for a sec? The only way we could actually get the shot rendered was taking each of the 101 frames and splitting it up into 7 tiles, and then putting each of those 707 tiles on a separate processor on our render wall. So that 700 procs, that's about a quarter of our render wall at the time, and each one of those tiles took about 2 days to render. So we would go in and we'd do, like every 20th frame, we'd spot check it, and it looked right, they set it off, and they got it on the first go. They didn't want to do this render this shot more than once. Not 35,000 hours of render time is expensive when you're working on a shot like this. And yeah, 2 days later it was all rendered, and then it's just a case. Yeah, we could roll again. Thank you. It's just a case of some great compositing work on the miniature city, adding flames and the smoke and the environment. This shot of the this helicopter shot of the riders. Sort of clashing with the orcs again. We didn't actually have a specific miniature pass for the city, and we had this issue that there's enough parallax on the city in this shot that we would read it if it was just created from tiles. So we got our low-res city geometry and just projected the element that we had onto that and re-rendered that, and that's what you see in the final shot. Save them doing a miniature pass. Just color coding the horses here to check for intersections. And this one, the flashes are actually full rendered, so they're checking every 10th or 20th frame for a full color render before they set off the render itself, which again is going to take a day or two to push through. Massive is great for shots like this, where we've got the orc army advancing on the city, where they'll give us a, this is the previs, this is what a previs orc looks like up close. They'll use the previs to derive a camera for a green screen shoot, so we can get those foreground guys actually shot on the green screen stage, which is nice of them. Sunny day in Boston. And then behind them we'll have the massive army, including siege towers and trolls. And there are some shots where there are 200,000 of these orcs in the frame, which is just incredible. And just a quick look at this shot of the orc army streaming into Minas Tirith once the gate has been breached. And I'll just show you this. There's the hero miniature pass, because there's different flavours of massive army. There's the guys on the walls, the guys who are actually streaming through the city, and then the majority of the orcs out the back are very low res. So they're able to run multiple sims and combine them together in a shot like that. Right, which brings us to, I think this is the penultimate topic I'm going to talk about here, which is good, we're not doing too badly. We had this shot in film 2 where we had a digital double legless leaping up onto a horse, and that brought us this whole scene in film 3. The success of that one shot brought us this whole scene in film 3. Where we're really pushing our digital double to the limits in shots like this. In some shots we're doing a handoff from like a blue screen element to an animated. Oh, yeah. Didn't quite know how Batman. So yeah, there's a handoff from the blue screen to the digital double. Then other shots, like this next one, he's a digital double throughout the shot because the reason he's digital throughout is because the blue screen element that we got, which is this one, just lacked the dynamics and the range that we needed to really make the shot work. We do get really close to his face in 2 or 3 frames, so we had to have the facial animation really working. A shot like this, where they just shot him on sandbags. The sandbags were there to sort of represent the back of the mummicle. And shots like this, we were really getting very close to the back of our mummicle as well, so we put hair and all that extracted displacement map detail onto the mummicle to make that stuff happen. But I'm going to finish now with a sort of slightly longer section on what for us is one of the biggest tasks on film 3, which is this battle that takes place right in the middle of the film. And there were shots in this battle that really drew on all the various different techniques that we have: hero creatures for the trolls and the horses, massive armies, digital doubles, the CG environment, blue screen, green screen elements. So pulling all these things together, and some shots that were actually entirely digital as well. There's quite a few shots in the sequence that are entirely digital. But the key to making this whole sequence work was pre-visualization. The whole sequence was animated before any cameras rolled, and that previs was really the key to getting it right, because it gave Peter Jackson the opportunity to really play around with the drama and the action. For a shot like this, we'd shoot our friend, the mad mummicle driver. He's a guy called Todd. And apart from that, everything else in that shot is digital. Obviously, we can just track him, and we've got a really rough work in progress there for the environment. We've got these giant towers on the backs of the creatures, which are sort of like creatures in themselves. This is just a quick look at our muscle model, which is really crucial to the skinning for all our hero creatures. We have a skeleton that drives these muscles, and then those muscles drive the skin, so we're getting a lot of complex skin behaviour out of that. We've got things like dynamic rigs for the tusk adornments, which are all rigged to procedurally animate themselves. It's just like a look at some of the pre-production items on the scene. We've got arrows, various levels of arrow hits. As this guy goes around, he gets more arrows. It's peppered with more arrows. So we could just, for any given mummicle in any given shot, we could just set a variable that said how many arrows has this guy gotten him at this point. And we did custom motion capture for the massive armies that are riding along in the towers of these guys, where we actually had a rig on the motion capture stage that was timed to match the animation. And we needed digital graphs. So this on the right is our digital graph solution. We're just testing it against an actual on-set pass here. And that was great because it supported full level of detail from wide shots right through to up really close to the mummicle's feet. Once we got that right, we just didn't have to worry about it. Again, this is the previs for this shot of the mummicle trumpeting. So really instrumental in terms of blocking this whole scene. Now, we saw the whole scene as previs really early on in the process. I put this in because it actually shows you a glimpse of the dynamic solve on the tower itself. With all the cloth and rope and leather on those things, they were a task unto themselves. This is the massive simulation. Those soldiers have been taught to run around the mummicle's legs. In a shot like this, the previs, which you can see, that's the creature bait, but the previs told them very carefully where to put the sandbags so that the horses knew where the foot was going to go and they could run around it. And in a shot like this, with the mummicle are tossing riders, when we start off on a green screen element of riders, the previs, as you see here, really crucial in terms of, if we pause on this, yeah, this is actually the previs rendered through an orthographic view from the top. So we've got Mamakill, horses, this is the camera showing what it's currently viewing. And they could have this on set and use it to refer to, so that they could, as closely as possible, stage hero horse action that matched what they needed for the shot. And the other thing that they did on set, which is pretty smart, they did this in Seabiscuit as well. They had, on the camera car that was filming these horses, they had two cameras side by side. I'm showing this one just because we drift on to the basket, and to the previs, you know, they would have taken a digital camera, the digital camera that this previs was rendered with, and used it to drive this motion control camera on set, so that we move on to the driver in the right way. You know, to do that, they had to start right off set. It's quite a big move, but without the previs, it would have been impossible to work out exactly what the form of that move was. You can just see in there. But everything else is digital, which kind of gets easier. When things are all digital, things kind of get easier in lots of ways. Another shot of horse carnage, and you can sort of see in this shot how we've matched the animation to the green screen horses, and we're doing a handoff there. I just dropped this shot of Eowyn and Mary riding through, just so you can get a sense of, in a shot like this, what's actually digital and what's real. This is the first final, the wrong one again. But the shot became entirely digital, and at that point we could just do anything we like with the camera. So here it is, kind of as a rough work in progress at some point in that 2-day period. And that horse that comes through frame at the end there is now digital. So this is the second version of the final shot, the one that more closely matched the previs, and we were able to turn that change around in a couple of days by the stage of the production. So I'll just show you that whole sequence again, and you can see that it makes much more sense that we are in fact following this guy all the way through the sequence. So that point of impact has much more drama, and Peter was very happy. And that, in fact, wraps up my lightning tour through. There's lots of things that I haven't talked about, obviously, eagles and wildebeests and all sorts of things, but maybe you had some questions, I'm not sure.